Today we're going to be talking about more of the major common issues when it comes to the Ae92. Now, if you are just tuning in for the first time, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more cool Ae92 content just like this. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, the Ae92 is a beautiful freaking Toyota. Now let's talk about the issues that it comes with, because all good things have issues. Now, the most common issues that we generally see is the normal rubber boots on these generally tend to crack, and if you don't see one, maybe try to get the folds of it and see if it has a crack, because generally these crack and cause major bad idling issues. Maybe the car will bog out, something of that nature. So definitely change out these rubber boots. You could even do something like I did, where I put this metal kind of tubing from an intake on here to basically act as that. The next common thing that happens is these battery mounting brackets always break, or they're missing when you buy an Ae92. Now, this is very important, because they're like, oh, fine, I don't need a bracket. If you do that mentality, what will happen is this battery will slide around. Not only that, it will basically, it'll be very dangerous. And also what ends up happening is the ground end, these terminals end up hitting something metal or whatever, and it'll actually turn off your car when you brake really hard. It'll cause the car to turn off or whatever, just because you have the battery loose. You got to make sure these are nice and secure. If you don't have a mounting bracket for it, I did this ghetto shit where I literally made zip ties to keep it into this place where it's at least somewhat secure, and so I make a better bracket for this. Another major common issue that generally happens with these Ae92s is, like I said, idling. And idling can be caused for many things. It could be caused by the intake, it could be caused by this sensor over here. It always generally goes bad. You could usually tell when you unplug the sensor and the idle fixes, then it's usually that sensor that's bad. As well as having low coolant will cause bad idle, or the idle to jump up and down. So make sure your coolant's filled all the way to the top as well. Moving on to this area, generally this O-ring over here, it leaks on the Ae92 GTSs. Always over here it leaks. Sometimes leaks in the oil return line going to the oil pan as well. They generally always leak. Obviously, I said this previously before, but the relays to the cooling fan always generally go out on both the SR5 and GTS, so make sure those are good. And then sometimes actually the thermostats fail as well. Now the GTS, it's down over here, pretty very easy to access, so I definitely recommend you guys changing that up pretty quickly. Another common issue that you guys may face, maybe you go the route of lowering your car. So if you have rear springs or even front ones for the coilovers, you want to make sure there's nice preload on them, because sometimes they're sent not bolted down and tightened properly, and they don't have the proper preload. So when you just put the coilovers in, the coilovers will sound and feel like complete shit. It'll clink really loud. It'll be really fucked up. So when you put coilovers into your Ae92s, make sure they have nice preload and they're actually tightened properly before you put them on, because sometimes those top nuts are really loose in the front coilovers and in the rear. So when you install them, they will ride like a complete and utter shit. Another common issue for both the Ae92 GTS and SR5 is this sensor right here. Sometimes it doesn't read the ground properly, and what will happen is, it'll make it seem like it's not overheating, but when you touch this sensor, it'll actually detect it correctly, and it's actually overheating. So you want to maybe replace these sensors, because they basically have a bad end, they're pretty bad, or maybe this actually connector is bad. So you want to make sure you double check these and replace them, as well as making sure all your grounds are not rusted out, because these can cause no start issues. They could cause your alternator to not charge. So make sure your your grounds, everything is kind of like brushed and sanded down, so they have very good connection and you won't have any problems when it comes to those things. And then last but not least, the alternator is actually the most common issues on these Ae92s, where it's a GTS or SR5. Generally, a lot of brake dust and heat, especially with the SR5, a lot of heat gets introduced to the alternator, and they generally, make the alternator or just go out, especially in the SR5. And the GTS, I'm not sure why, but I mean, it is very close to the engine, so that's fun. So these always go out, even when you get a new one. Double check them, because sometimes even the new alternators, they come defective from factory, so you want to double check that. They're very simplistic to replace. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment below, but they're very easy to replace. As well, in the GTS, the starter over here generally ends up going out as well. It's introduced to a lot here since it's between the header and the engine. So, you know, they generally go out as well. And those are typically the common issues that you can really expect when it comes to the Ae92. I really hope this helped you out. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment below. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more Ae92 content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.